It's an epidemic. There's just a wake of leaders and friends and people in my life and people that we read about and see on the news. How do we manage all this? How do I keep it all afloat? Burnout does not come from working too much. Burnout comes from working too often on things that are not aligned with your purpose, which is at the core, your inner life, right? Yeah. When we're isolated, that's when we're actually at our worst.
We need more people in community.
And he goes, I want to say this out loud in front of other people. Thank you for saving my life.
Welcome to the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential as a leader. Hey, can I ask you a favor? Can you please hit subscribe or follow on any platform that you're listening or watching this episode? Our goal is to connect with you, to bring additional value to you, to bring additional topics to you, and we can do that more effectively if you hit subscribe or follow. Thank you so much.
As a heads up, this episode touches on mental health, and for help and resources, check the links in the description or at the end of the episode. Let's get into the conversation.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. I have the distinct pleasure today to be in the studio with a very dear friend, mentor, coach, 3 a.m. friend, which we've talked about on this episode, Luke Dooley. Luke, thank you so much for joining us.
Are you kidding? Thanks for having me on, man. I'm honored.
So Luke, you've spent the better part of your career investing in entrepreneurs, leaders, people who are founders, co-founders, their teams, and like helping people figure out what journey they're on and how to do it in a way that they don't burn themselves and everyone else out around them and still have a family to go home to and love on after their entrepreneur journey day light switches off and then sometimes switches back on because that's what happens to ourselves when we get back home. And that's part of what I wanted to help unpack today for those that are listening that are going, you know, how do I prioritize? How do I bring my best self, but also know my limits?
That's right.
In this conversation.
Yeah, man, you're right. I've given a lot of my time and energy to that over the last 15 or so years, focused on how do we help people not just lead well, but live well? Mm-hmm. How do we help them have a life that where their inner life and their outward life are aligned? Mm. Because when you are not aligned there, when there's misalignment, it's not sustainable, right? That I heard a definition of burnout once. It was like, burnout does not come from working too much. Burnout comes from working too often on things that are not aligned with your purpose, which is at the core, your inner life, right? Yeah. And so, man, we want leaders that are inwardly alive and that where that inner life is aligned with their outward impacts so that they can do it sustainably, so they can do it at a clip that feels energizing in life. It doesn't mean it's easy, doesn't mean it's not hard work, doesn't mean you're not in the trenches, it doesn't mean there's seasons where it's like really daunting and seasons where you're like, man, I think I'm working too much. Yeah. Okay, at least you're aware of that. Self-awareness is the doorway to transformation. So the fact that you're aware that you're probably working too much in this season is a gift. Yeah. Figure out how you're going to wind this season down because it can't go on forever. And you know that. Right. And man, we want you in the game for a long time. Mm. Like we want to keep you in the game for the whole game. That's the motto of a place that you and I have been together. Right. That's special in our lives, which we'll probably talk about later. But here's what I've learned over the years. It's an epidemic, right? And that's probably not a shock to anyone that listens to your podcast. People that go, yeah, man, I know that because I live it and I see it all around me. And there's just a wake of leaders and friends and people in my life and people that we read about and see on the news or on Twitter or wherever that are going, man, how do we manage all this? How do I keep it all afloat? I got a text literally yesterday from someone that's really close to me. And they just said, man, do you ever feel like every single day is comprised of nothing but solving problems? And I was like, yes, I feel that way often, actually. We kind of laughed. And he just sort of went on this rant and was like, life sometimes just feels impossible. And it was like, make more money, be more present with my family, grow spiritually, stay in shape, be a better dad, be a better husband, do more good things, make sure the kids have the right friends, manage their screen time, figure out technology and AI and absorb news and content to stay current, coach my kids' sports teams. He's like, this is an endless list. This could go on. And he says, how is peace even possible?
Wow.
And I'm getting that text and going, man, I feel you, bro.
Yeah.
And also that's why doing what I'm doing, not because I have it all figured out, but because, man, I want to be committed to helping him and you and anyone that's listened to this and elsewhere figure those kinds of questions and dilemmas out.
Yeah. And this is such a key part of the unconventional leadership definition, right? That where self-care, resiliency, self-preservation, not losing yourself in the work you're doing. Because a lot of what you just referenced, those examples that your friend texted, those were all on the personal front. Almost like after work these are all the things I got to then go do as well and have on my mind and my heart all day. There's probably 139 other decisions that leader had to make that day with the team and the organization and the customers and the brand and the outbound and inbound activities that you do as an organization with your bank and with your attorney and with your lawyer and with your accounting manager and with your sales team. Like it's endless.
And I think that's the problems he's referencing. Like is the workday just an endless sea of problems? Yeah, I think kind of it is a lot of times, right? He circled back later and he said, there's just this imbalance of like, man, in the year 2025 for a family of my size, like, man, it requires a certain clip, right? To operate at a certain income level, right? And then I want to be present. And I want to be, fully there. And how do I do all of that stuff with the amount of time that not I have, but that we all have, right? Because time's universal, right?
That's right.
So it's a fascinating conversation, and it's something that I think so many people are wrestling with. And I love his question of like, how is peace possible? And I was talking to a mutual friend of ours today, and I asked him that question. He's a really high achieving, hard running, literally and figuratively guy that is just, runs multiple businesses and ultra marathons and always spinning up something new. And he's really just excels at so many things he does. It's like, how are you so good at so many things? And you always smile and you always seem happy, and we were just having this conversation, like what brings about peace, what cultivates that, and that's been a theme for me in my life. I've written on the top of my journal so many times over the last couple of years, like cultivate peace. What does it mean to cultivate peace, to actually make peace in your life? And so we just, earlier today, literally we had this same conversation I was like, man, how do you cultivate peace? How do you make peace? And he's like, part of it's the running. Part of it was, he's like, I have some ways that I go take out the angst and the aggression. I'm in control when I'm lifting weights or when I'm pounding the pavement or the woods, right? Running and doing that kind of thing. So part of it is that's what gives me like, part of it is like, I gotta go make more time. So like I started waking up like wicked early, like uncomfortably, painfully early, to do this kind of stuff so that I can, wear different hats. And he's like, I feel like an imposter all the time. Like I always feel like I'm half good at that and half good at that. And I'm okay at that business. And I always think like, should I just isolate and hone in on this one thing? And I look around at other people that are successful and it's like, man, they do that one thing and they do it so well. And I do I try to do like 10 things well. So he's like, I don't know, man, I wrestle with it too.
Wow.
He said something really good. He said, for me, he said, I think a huge factor of it is just literally writing down what my definition of success for my life is and identifying, naming that, and then measuring against that. Like, does that come from a well-rooted, properly motivated place, right? Is that like a healthy source that's coming from? And if so, and it's the identity that I want and the kind of the goal set that I want and sort of like the success factor that I want, I'm just kind of measuring against that and going like, all right, man, like you're doing it.
Right.
And so much of, I think what we experience in our modern age right now is we feel like whatever we're doing, it's not enough because I see what you're doing and I see what he's doing and I see what she's up to. And I'm comparing myself to all of that versus comparing what are my actual, efforts and outputs creating. And is it the thing I've said I want to be about? Because if so, man, awesome. Like, let's celebrate that for myself.
Yeah.
And man, I hope we can help leaders learn how to celebrate themselves, learn how to go, all right, I'm doing a good thing, right? sure, there's room for improvement. I could level up. I could do something different. I
Yeah.
might try tweak some things, but all right, I'm measuring myself against something that's healthy and actual,
Yeah.
not something mythical or unattainable or meant for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I need to go live my goals, identity, purpose, right? Because
Yeah.
if I don't live it, no one's living it. I don't want to go live their thing,
Right.
Are you looking for a place that you can create the content that helps market your brand? Or are you somebody who just needs a space that they can record a podcast, record talking head social content? You want to create a webinar, a course, or other content like that? Take a look at the Cincinnati Podcast Studio. We're a space built just for creators like you. Our studio here in downtown Cincinnati, located right next to all the hot restaurants in OTR, is set and ready for you. We can have up to 4 people in our studio. You can record long form, short form content. It looks awesome. The lights change colors. I mean, even there, hi, in the background. What's up there, guys? We have all the technical amenities to try and help you succeed at creating high quality content. We work on everything from subscriptions to create your own show. We do day rentals so you can create massive volumes of content and we'll just hand you all the footage. And we can even do things like limited time series where you can come in, record a bunch of episodes at one go, and then have that ready for a show to market your brand or your business. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a brand, or an author who's looking to market themselves with high quality video content, check out our website at cincinnatipodcaststudio.com and schedule a tour today.
Yeah, there's a exercise, and actually I did that exercise when you and I were in Wyoming together a couple years ago, that's called At Your Best. And it's an exercise of mapping out at my best. It doesn't mean, I always tell people when you do the exercise, don't start judging yourself. Because if you put this around, I remember the last room I did this with, there were about 39 HR leaders. And I put this around and I said, hey, we're going to take a break from presentation mode and go into an activity. And what I want you to do is just write at your best statements. Physically, spiritually, at home, at work, mentally, emotionally. At your best, I am this. At your best, I do these things. At my best. And then, oh, by the way, you're not allowed to judge yourself. So don't start joking and laughing like, I can't do, I don't even know what at my best look. No, what is at your best? How do you function at your best? When you wake up and you do these things in this way, I'm at my best. When you have what amount of margin, when you spend what amount of time, journaling, doing yoga, things, then literally I say this is, I know what you're thinking right now. It's been a while since I've been able to function at my best, right? Because everything gets in the way. And well, at my best, Mike, at my best, I used to do this. I used to do this, and this, but I haven't done that in 5 years or 15 years. That same room, I had an HR leader say, Mike, at my best, all I'm trying to do is help everyone else be at their best. I haven't actually set a personal goal for myself in years. And you're like, well, how's that even possible? Well, that's the pace we're all running, right? We're all running so fast. We don't know how to think about at my best. That exercise was created by a friend and an author who was diagnosed. He was a marathon runner and he was diagnosed with ALS and his whole body physically shut down. And what he said was, Mike, my identity was not being an author, was not being a father, was not being an executive. It was being a runner. I ran and I did it really, really well. And then all of a sudden it was gone. And my legs, I couldn't function. My legs couldn't function. And that's what this exercise was born out of him getting, spiritually and personally healthy and thinking like, you know what, at my best, I did these things. My identity wasn't a runner. My identity is a lot of other things, which this exercise helps you identify, and it puts you at a calm peace. So every time I do a personal retreat, I take my at my best exercise, I print off a new one, and I, design, and what does this look like? Now, I don't always function at my best, right? Because nobody does, but it at least gives you some grounding to come back to, which is why retreating, personal time, gratitude journaling is so powerful. And you've built a whole, dare I say, I want to say ministry, I want to say vocation, but you like help people say, hey, dude, you need to take some time for yourself and help us do that, right? And you're helping a whole community of people doing that.
Well, back to what you were mentioning there about at your best, I think that what those exercises do is they give us like you said, a grounding or a scaffolding almost to sort of build our best life on, right? And to build, I don't want to say a mirror, it's a measuring up. I don't mean it like that, but you're familiar with the phrase, a rule of life?
Sure.
Right. And so people hear rule and they think, nothing's ruling me. I don't want any rules. I got enough rules in my life. Rule in the sense of what's true, right? What's like sort of true, lasting, it's inspired by the word a trellis. Like the idea is like the trellis that vines would grow on, that a plant would grow on. That's a rule that holds that plant up and gives it its ability to do its thing.
And then the plant ends up holding up the rule.
Yeah.
Right.
Ends up holding up the trellis. So it's like that. The grapevine cannot produce the grape without the trellis. Like it produces bad fruit. It can't do what it's intended to do. So the trellis gives it the ability to be its best.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what, when you have someone going through that exercise, when you're leading a leader through that exercise, or you're doing it yourself, that's what you're doing. You're designing a rule of life. Like you said, I am at my best when I journal for, 5 or 6 minutes a day. It doesn't take much. Right. I'm at my best when I'm probably up before, 6:01 a.m. right? Or maybe not. It's different for everyone, but determining that and understanding that gives you a little bit of scaffolding to start to go, all right, I can use this to build off of, and I can go higher into new places because of some of these foundational elements that I've cultivated over time, that I've, muscles I've developed, and they're not always going to be present. They're not always going to be in function, but man, I'll be able to go back to them.
That's the key part.
Pick them back up.
Yeah.
And I'll have a bad morning or day or week or month or season, right? Yeah. And I saw someone the other day, I wish I could think who it was. And they said, one of the greatest skills in life is the ability to not carry a bad blank into the next. A bad morning into the next morning, a missed day at the gym into a missed 2 days or 5 days or 25 days or years at the gym, a missed, right? Or a grumpy moment with your spouse into the next moment with your spouse. Like the ability to recognize, to be aware of like, ooh, I don't love that version of me. I don't like how that went. I don't love that I didn't show up in that moment or for those people or for myself. And I'll sulk in it and stay here and, and man, and sometimes it's not sulking, right? I don't want to, we're recording this in June. It's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, right? As I understand it. And so it's like, sometimes sulking can be a little like, oh, pull yourself by your bootstraps. Man, I get it. Like sometimes you're just in a spot where you're going, I don't know how to pull up.
Yeah.
I don't know how. And that's again, where if you've done the exercise, if at some point you've thought and considered and become aware of, man, when I'm healthy, when I'm well, when I'm at my best, that's what this looks like. I can sort of fall back on those things.
Right.
I don't have the strength in me right now to go cultivate that, but man, maybe I can write down a few things I'm grateful for.
Right.
Maybe that's the most I can muster. And maybe that is that small beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That builds to something much greater over time. So love that stuff. Our mutual friend, Kevin, he'll take a similar exercise that if that's like in our present moment, Kevin will do the sort of the classic, I keep wanting to say eulogy. Thank you. Eulogy exercise. And Kevin does it in a unique way where he'll go through and he'll say, what would I want my spouse to say at my funeral? What would I want my kids to say at my funeral? And then like, what would I want my financial planner to say at my funeral? What would I want my doctor to say? Right? Like, man, Kevin, wasn't the portrait of health, but boy, he was humble and he listened and he would apply wisdom when I gave it to him. And he worked hard to stay nimble and present and active so that he could be there for the people he loved most. That'd be pretty cool to hear, right? And then just going down the list of like, what do I want people to say? And then that starts to bring shape to okay, then what has to be true today for that to be true then?
Right. So Luke, you tapped on Mental Health Awareness Month for men, and while we're sitting here, I'm literally reflecting, thinking about a friend of mine who 5 years ago took his life, right? Wildly successful entrepreneur, had the zeal that you were mentioning earlier about a friend that, like, you know, looked like a pillar of health, pillar of energy, always was there for everyone else. And to be frank, he took us all by shock.
Man.
Like, it wasn't something like, oh yeah, he's just clinically depressed. It was, no, we all had no idea.
Yeah.
And he was, I wish he could go with me on a next retreat to Montana, to Wyoming. I wish he could join a circle and community of individuals who care about one another far beyond their job title in the last article that was written about him in a magazine or in a newspaper. Your work is helping people build that community where they're, you know, what I call the 3 a.m. friend. It's actually the concept, one that took me down the self-care journey. The whole reason why our self-care quiz that's now been taken by 5,000 people even came to life was because of his passing. The entire focus of a lot of our content around, like, it's okay not to be okay.
Right.
It's, you know, I say often, if you don't have somebody who you think can be your 3 a.m. friend, you call me, right? That whole concept of 3 a.m. friend, that one day people joke like, Mike, you should write a book about it, right? Because you've been one of my 3 a.m. friends. I've reached out to you in moments that's like, whew, this entrepreneurial thing and family thing and husband thing and parent thing and employer thing and a person who's had others invest in him to build something that I know is going to be transformative, but it takes a lot of energy to get there. And you've helped me understand that it's okay to say that. Like, it's okay to say, like, this sucks sometimes and this is really, really difficult. And I know I want to, I'm sharing at lunch today. I'm excited more now about the next 5 years than I have been the last 5 years or I was 10 years ago. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't come with days that you're like, what in the world is happening?
For sure.
So thank you for the investment that you make into so many of us.
Thanks, man.
But you also have to know, and there's got to be some, you know, you're reaching into people to not have them be so isolated.
Yeah, man.
Right?
That's what the core of my work has been about for a long time. Just the belief that when we're isolated, that's when we're actually at our worst, right? Whether that's isolation of our own doing or of others' doing or of circumstantial. I believe we all have an enemy, and that enemy knows when we're alone, he can get us. And it comes in many, many forms. And so I'm a firm believer that isolation is the enemy, and I want to build weapons against that. And so, for instance, that's what we've been doing. We've been creating spaces and experiences where people can be fully known, where they can encounter transformation, where they can become aware of things about themselves, about the world around them, and about other people that make them more fully known and make them become more fully alive, and put them in moments of either transformation or at least reset, opportunity to sort of, you know, recalibrate. And so whether that comes through mountaintop retreats and experience and excursions and things like we've done together, whether that's short or long, whether it's a 36-hour thing or a 5-day thing, or whether that's a journey, like, man, we're committed in relationship with a small group or a band of people that we're going to be on journey with regularly, monthly, for a really long time, because, man, we know we're at our best, to use your phrase, when we're not alone. I know I'm at my best when I'm surrounded by people like this. And so, man, I've seen unbelievable things happen when you create a space and you tell people, hey, in the space tonight or that week or this year at that thing, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get peers that understand, not exactly what you're, but like they carry the same weight. Like you referenced something a minute ago. There's a pressure and a weight of being someone who has received investment into your enterprise,
Mm-hmm.
you instantly feel very different as a leader, as a founder, as a CEO, because other people have staked you.
Right.
And you feel a responsibility, a burden, a zeal, a fear, a what if. Like, man, there's a lot there instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I have watched that play out over and over and over. What happens to people when that weight and pressure is crushing and they don't have any peers. They don't know who to share that with. Yeah. But even that aside, not taking, just going, man, I own a thing, and that thing puts food on people's tables and pays their mortgages and provides for their families and creates economic impact in a community that I love and provides value to clients. And wow, man, there's this inherent weight pressure of being a business owner, being an entrepreneur. And so when I can say to those folks, hey, I'll put you in a room or at a thing with a whole bunch of other people that feel that same weight.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, there are also people that are trying to do this like to the best of their ability, like the right way, like to be a pillar in their community, to be someone that's there for their kids and their spouse, to be someone that's, healthy and thriving and flourishing, not just in vocation, but in their relational life and their inner life. Someone that when they get to the end of the game, they go, man, I did not put things on the altar that I wished I hadn't. I did not put relationships or soul or health or, integrity on the altar to go climb a mountain and get success, right? Quote unquote.
Recognizing
success.
When I get there, it's not what I wanted.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so I've seen powerful things happen when you simply make a table, make a fire, create a space, open a door, right? Invite people in and say, hey, a couple things. There can be people like you that understand similar weight, pressure, privilege, opportunity, ambition, and also trying to do it the right way. Mm-hmm. And oh, by the way, what we're going to do in that space, everything's fair game. We're going to just talk about anything we want. This is not a workspace. This is not a family space. This is not a, religion space. This is like dude, what if you could live wholeheartedly in that space? Because what I've found is a lot of times people, it's like, well, I got a bunch of friends. Well, you got friends you might go on the boat with or go golf with or, whatever. You might even have friends with your spouse or in your small group or from a church or from people that are really valuable to you. But you probably, if they're not entrepreneurs, business owners, you're not talking with them at all about vocation. So you're almost like decoupling a big part of your identity. And for owners, it's a huge part of their identity, right? So I'll just decouple that and kind of shelf it. So you don't get to be wholehearted. You get to be a fractional person in that room most times. And then over here, it's like you're in the industry stuff. You go to the ecosystem events, you go to the Chamber of Commerce, you go to the conferences, the conventions, whatever. And over there, you're always the work person. You're almost never, very rarely are you
always on. You're
always on, and it's always about work, right? And typically you're less than authentic, right? Hey, how are things going? Oh, good. How are you, right? Good quarter, right? Not often it's like, really rough quarter. Not super sure if we can pull up out of this. Probably not saying that at the Chamber of Commerce. You're definitely not saying, business is okay. Marriage is falling apart. So where are you in a room where you can say any and all of that? And for most owners and leaders, it's like, those rooms don't exist. Yeah. And so we're like, let's go make those rooms exist. Yeah, let's create those spaces.
So a part of the journey for me personally, I say is, we created a brand called Talent Magnet Institute, which in short is TMI. Yeah. There's a reason for that. There's lots of reasons for that, right? We didn't, one of the things that I personally try to work on is to be more authentic than I believe those rooms expect, because I want people to hear me put priority, not all about work, but to share about my 3 kiddos that I'm very proud of, that all have their own experiences that they're learning and living through, that I share about my relationship with my spouse, with my wife, Amber, often, to the point that might even throw people off, because if you ask me how things are going, I might actually answer your question, because I'm trying to be a light in a world where so much superficial activity can happen if you allow it, to the point that the worst case scenario is it takes someone's life where they feel like I don't have any space to turn. I don't know who to talk to. I remember this particular friend who took his own life. He shared with me a month before what happened, that he did not feel like he had anywhere. He didn't feel like it was safe to bring up what he was really going through with many people. Didn't say he was in total isolation, but he shared with me over a coffee that like, I've got these things going on in my multiple businesses. There were 3 of them. And everybody expects me to be on because one of his businesses reaches thousands of people and he's supposed to be on. It's like he's always on stage, right? Was always on stage. So I've made it a point to answer authentically, even if I spook you to the point you're like, I didn't need to, it's not oversharing per se. It's to show you like, it's okay to be authentic. And it's because of friends like you and leaders like you and leaders that are in our circles that are like, hey, no, I really care, man.
Yeah.
I really want to understand.
Sometimes that role is like a permission giver is such a powerful role that we can step into and play.
Right.
Like I give you permission to be real simply by being real.
Yeah.
It's like I can change the rules of the game simply by doing that.
And there's a big part of that filters into the brand of unconventional leadership. When we originally launched our podcast, we had it branded as the Talent Magnet Institute podcast, which we did 195 episodes under that brand. So I get so used to saying it. But we've had a lot of conversations with leaders on this podcast that basically made us recognize this is really all about being unconventional. We want an executive that you and I would look in the world and say, well, this gentleman's running a $80 million company that's profitable, that employs 400 people, who has 3 divisions and is getting ready to acquire another company, who sits on this podcast and talks about how heavy his backpack is because of all of the things over his life he's recognized and put into the backpack. So far to the point that he took his company ESOP and now is very much still a chairman, but is doing things that he feels called into this chapter of life and not running the grind and letting other people lead.
Unloading the pack a little.
Unloading the backpack. So he talks about unloading the backpack.
Yeah.
We've had conversations about people who have suffered from deep depression, who have suffered from alcoholism, who came clean and shared with others and then talk about it on our podcast. Is the first place they've ever talked about it publicly before. Yeah. Because we want to be unconventional. We want to inspire and encourage people to think unconventionally, and then how powerful that can be if each one of us transcends that into our teams and organizations that we're a part of, or our community that we're in, or even the family that we live in. There's topics that we cover that people are like, wow, you really get into personal leadership things. Why do you go personal if it's about leadership? Because we want you to know that being an unconventional leadership is holistic.
Right. Yeah.
I care about the whole self.
At Banded, we say, we believe leadership is 75% who you are and 25% what you do. And so we want to spend a lot of our time when we're with you and when you're in environments of ours, like thinking about who. Yeah. And we don't devalue the what at all. We talk a lot about the what, but never over elevating it or never making, would I say this right? The who in service of the what, right? But the what in service of the who, and to do that, to talk about the who, you got to be able to talk about the whole thing. You have to create space where people go, oh, this is unconventional. Here's a great unconventional model. We, and other work that I've been a part of for a long time, we ran a tech accelerator, and this tech accelerator is a different kind of tech accelerator in every way, shape, and form, virtually, right? And so very early stage, and we would, we build a cohort, and we have kind of a 16-week program. Week 1 would be like the big kickoff welcome week. And our program manager, wonderful, marvelous guy, his name's James. James had this exercise that he would have people do, kind of like, you have your favorite exercise, right? Everyone's kind of got their thing, right? James would say, I really look forward to hearing where you're all from. And that's kind of what he would set them up with. And then he would say, so show up and be prepared to tell us where you're from And as we get to know each other, week 1 during welcome week. And then at the end of kind of mid part of day 1, James would say, hey, I'm looking forward to hearing where you guys are all from. I figured I'd kick things off and let you know where I'm from. And he would dive in and he would pull his phone out and he would read for, I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes, I am from. And he would just like, my name is James and I am from, and he would start to unpack these things from his story. And they were big things. I am from this experience of dealing with, bigotry and racism, right? Because his skin is not white, right? Mm-hmm. I am from then going back to his homeland, his parents' native land, going like, oh, but now I feel like an outcast there. I am from this experience. I'm from that job. I am from losing this person I loved at 19 in a car crash. I am from, and just, he just goes and he goes and he goes. And you're watching a room full of tech founders who thought they were coming to an accelerator, and they are, to be fair. And they're going, oh man, I don't think I
ever
understood how to talk about where I'm from like this. And so he kind of gets done and it's beautiful and it's sort of, silent in the room, and everyone's like, wow. And he says, okay, any questions? Because the rule of the I am from exercise is you can ask me whatever you want now. So James, tell me more about what did that actually feel like? How did you get past that? How did you turn that corner? And authentic, honest expressions and answers to these questions. And then you see a group of people go, oh man, I need to go home tonight and figure out how I'm going to talk about where I'm from.
Yeah.
And it turns out anytime you ask someone that question and they're real, everyone's from somewhere really fascinating and they're shaped by really fascinating things. And so you'll experience a beautiful outcome and overflow of story and authenticity, and creating a space where people can live wholeheartedly. And, you'll hear things. Every single year we did this, we would hear from at least one founder, and they would be reading their thing or reciting their thing. And they would go, I have never said this out loud before.
Yeah.
And then they would say this thing that happened to them, or that they felt or thought about or were afraid of. And you could just watch them go, I cannot believe I'm doing this in a room full of people I did not know 48 hours ago.
Wow. And
it's unbelievable, right? So I've seen that play out in that environment. I've seen it play out. I was in Wyoming 2 weeks ago, man, back at our place that we love. And I had a group of leaders there and going around the dinner table and all kinds of great conversations every single night. And then one night, one guy just looks across the table at his friend and he's teared up. Last guy you'd think that would be teared up out of that group. And he goes, I want to say this out loud in front of other people. Thank you for saving my life. And he said, I'm not going to unpack all this if you want, but like years ago, I was in a moment where I had some thoughts that maybe life wasn't worth living anymore. And I'd never expressed it to anyone, but this guy knew me so well. He could see it all over me. And like you said, sometimes you don't, unfortunately. Yeah. And this guy saw it, and he simply texted him one night and he said, beer ? And he's like, that text message and the beer we had after that saved my life. If that doesn't make you want to leave and go like, all right, how do I go create spaces like that?
Right.
How do I go live, authentically and counterculture and contrarian and what's your word? Unconventional, right? I'll get to it.
Exactly.
It's like, man. And so there's so many principles and lessons there, so many things to kind of pull on. And it's funny, after I do this podcast, I'm going to happy hour with a friend, and one of his life rules is, if you text me if I ever get a text from you that says beer ? I will be there, because I know it is not about the beer, right? It is about you, and it is about something going on. And that is like the bat signal for like, dude, I need you.
That same friend,
6
years ago, almost 5.5 years ago, I asked him a question and he said, bourbon ?
Yeah.
And we sat in his office for 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah.
I dealt with something professionally, maybe it was 4.5 years ago, now that I'm really playing the details. I dealt with something professionally that I've never experienced before, and I felt completely embarrassed, and I felt completely, the word devastated.
Sure.
And he helped me
There
realize
was no playbook for the thing you were going through. Yeah.
And his comment was, when we sat down, I remember distinctively, he said, "Do you know most entrepreneurs go through this?
Boom.
But nobody ever talks about it."
Yeah.
So that creating the safe space that Dave creates, that Luke creates, that I try to create, that we try to create, we want to encourage you to create, because there's team members, there's colleagues, there's friends, there's family members right next to you all day long that needs someone to say, you know what, here's what's really going on. And for you to say something that makes them go, is it okay for me to share too? Because I'm dealing with the same thing and I've never really talked about it. I don't have a community to have that conversation with. And showing up unconventionally means, to me, part of the definition is it means caring about the whole person. It means that holistically we are human and we are beautifully and wonderfully made. Holistically, we have potential that lives inside of us that maybe nobody's tapped into, not because we couldn't find it ourselves, but nobody's actually pointed it out or asked the question. And that's the responsibility that we have. If you're listening to the Unconventional Leadership podcast, there's some level of influence that you're having in life that you consider yourself or have been told or nominated that you're a leader. Okay, so you may be thinking, how do I do this? How do I lead unconventionally? How do I lead my team in a way that's unconventional? How do I build a strategy that's unconventional to elevate my organization and those around me? I want to encourage you to reach out through the link in the description and post that question. I want to learn how to lead more unconventionally. I want to help my team think unconventionally, and let's start the conversation. So thank you for joining us, and let's get back to the episode.
And that's true in so many areas of our life, so many arenas where simply talking about the thing, again, turns you into permission giver. And
right.
Man, what's darkness's greatest weapon, right? Against it, it's light, right?
Yeah.
And same thing with isolation and loneliness. And man, I think I first learned that lesson when my wife and I, her first pregnancy, we're 9 years into our marriage, and we waited a little while, and then we tried for a season to have kids and kept trying and trying and trying. And we were just on the front end of going like, oh man, is this going to be more challenging than we had thought or hoped? And she gets pregnant, and then we go to our 11 or 12 week appointment, and there's no heartbeat, and we've lost that baby, right? And that's the first time in the aftermath of that, I realized how often people are going through things. They feel like they're the only ones. And then other people are actually have gone through that, and they just haven't ever talked about it. Right. And so it's such a powerful antidote to the thing I went through. And so in the aftermath of that, we start hearing from all these people, oh, we had a miscarriage, or we had 2 miscarriages. We had 3 or 4 miscarriages. Our first several, and you're just hearing, and I'm going, wait a minute. And my wife's going, I'm over here thinking my body's broken. It can't do what it was made to do. And like all this stuff. And then she's instantly starting to feel like, oh, like, not like, oh, it's okay. It's like, but, oh, I'm not alone in this. Yeah. I'm not this fundamentally flawed thing. And this is not a singular experience or this hyper rare thing. So like when Dave told you, like, do you know most entrepreneurs go through what you just went through? You're like, oh, shoot. Okay. Well then how do we get through it? It just reframed. It goes okay, great.
It was like, really?
Now that I realize that, now I can start to deal with it in a different way. Yeah. And I can actually start to wrestle the real issue, not the issue behind the issue, right? Because the real issue is some tactical concern, right? So in the pregnancy issue, the real issue was my wife's body early on in pregnancy needed more progesterone, and the doctors found out very quickly. And we have 3 lovely, beautiful kids, right? And we've had other failed pregnancies in the midst of that. But boy, we found I hate to say it like that, but a tactical solution. And in your entrepreneurial example, there were some tactical, practical blocking and tackling things that you needed to go do.
Yeah.
And maybe there was a little bit more of a playbook than you first realized.
Yeah.
But the issue behind the issue that you may not have ever dealt with the real thing because you let the identity stuff up front. You let the fears, like, I'm the only one that's ever gone. I can't talk to anyone. Oh my gosh, I got all this shame and I got all this guilt and I got all this responsibility and so I got to deal with all that. And so I can't ever get to the actual thing to solve the problem. And it's like Dave simply turned the diamond for you and opened the door and went, cool, we can deal with all that. But this is a normal thing, dude. We're okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That community component, part of the other real issue that came up, and having the community component highlight it was so embarrassing. The activity that it got into pride and selfishness. And when you realize like, I was even fearful to bring it up. Like it probably took him 3 or 4 questions to ask what was really going on. Right.
Yeah.
But people who are crafted and gifted in that know that and create a safe space where you can trust that here's what's really going on.
Yeah.
Your point of the dinners. I mean, when we sat around the amazing dinner table multiple times in Wyoming, I'm encouraging those who are listening to go, hey, tell me about this thing
how
you
do I
guys
go
do
to-
in these other retreats.
October 20th through the 24th. If you're a guy, if you're a man and you own a business and you want to go to Montana, you're invited.
There it is.
Mike's going. I just put him on the spot.
And keep the list coming, right? Because I just the other day I was at a celebration event for a friend's 2 friends that launched a business 25 years ago. They were celebrating their anniversary, and another buddy came up and he was like, "Hey, tell me about that retreat thing again that you did a couple years ago."
Because this was a couple years ago when you and I went.
This was a couple years ago when I went, and he was like, "I think I may want to be on that short list."
Oh, sweet.
At some point, who's another entrepreneur. But the dynamics that you also referenced earlier that I want to come back to, you said when you were out there just recently, it was like the 3rd or 4th meal that you had together before someone opened up.
We had guys open up immediately, like night 1. But I'm saying that particular conversation
was
happened
multiple times.
Yeah.
So the reason why I mentioned this is that it doesn't necessarily always happen night 1. My assumption is if you open up night 1 with Luke, you've been through it before.
You most often do not. Yeah, I agree.
It takes some time. So we say to organizations, we say when we're working with your team, there's something different about session 3 and 4 than 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And our team knows that. So in session 1 and 2, we're planting seeds to increase trust and vulnerability and people to feel heard, people to have their own visibility and their own confidence, that session 3, 4, and 5, we're going to get to another level of conversation. And our goal is to do that because all of a sudden when we start unpacking real life with team, then we go, now we can build from this.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally. And in this book right here, there's a graphic. It's kind of a funnel, right? Kind of an upside down pyramid deal. And, which is exactly, I guess, what a funnel is, right? An upside down pyramid. It's a little redundant there on my part. And partially learned this from our friends out west at Refuge, right? Where, man, when you have, what we say is when you take leaders of shared ambition, right? And shared, life perspective, shared faith, right? Shared ambition and shared like goal. And then we help them share experiences. And in those experiences, we share, the same language and we share wisdom with one another, right? What happens is you build trust. So we've formed a layer of trust. And when you have trust, trust leads to authenticity, right? So, because I trust you, I can be authentic around you. And when I'm authentic around people, that gives way ultimately to vulnerability and to intimacy. I can go beyond authenticity now and I can actually get vulnerable. I can peel a layer back. I can be intimate with you and say things like, man, I don't talk about this at home a lot. Or I've had guys all the time say, man, I would never talk about this stuff with my friends at home. But for some reason, I feel like I can talk about it with you guys out here. Just such a fascinating thing for me. Yeah. So trust. So shared experiences, trust, authenticity, vulnerability, And we believe that vulnerability is what ultimately leads to transformation. That's the process. That's that funnel you have to go through in any community experience, leadership development, learning program. And so I think you're absolutely right to say sessions 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, kind of, I hate to say in perpetuity, but like, man, you're going to find this to be such an indispensable part of your life and your journey and your leadership that you're like, dude, I can't imagine not being in this room. So I'm in, right? But what we say is like, it's a 6-month minimum. So when you sign up, you're committing to 6 months. And I had a guy recently, he asked me, he's like, man, is there any other way I'd like to check it out or come for 2 or 3 months? And I'll probably end up jumping in, but I need to be sure. And I said, nope. And here's why. And it was, I gave him the trust pyramid and said like, here's the reality, dude. Like, I actually don't think your life's going to be changed in session 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But I think by the time you hit month 5 or 6, you're going to be looking around going, holy cow, dude, I'm a better leader. I'm a better business owner. I'm a better, spouse, friend, neighbor, because of these guys, because of these conversations, because of these tools, because of the journey we've been on, because I've been authentic in environments with these guys and I've experienced vulnerability from them and to them. So 6-month minimum.
You got to be in. Yeah. There's something about this safe space. Again, I'm visualizing, I'm thinking about people that don't have that or don't feel they have that, and the power that we bring with our CHRO mastermind, the power that other people that run roundtable programs. We need more people in community. There's far too many people who think everything that's going on in their life, with your buddy's text message that he sent you that we started this episode with, who are dealing with all of these things, and you feel so isolated in a world that we live in today. And we don't want you to be.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want you to be. And we want to try to help others experience it so then they can then live it out and reach another layer of people, right? Another volume of people. The more and more individuals who experience this community-like environment can then create their own community-like environment or bring people into community-like environment.
Well, and that's the beauty of it, is like every single one can look very different, and it should look like who you are, right? And so you can create experiences around dinner tables or campfires, like I said, or golf trips, or book clubs, or cooking, or what's your thing? What's walking, rucking, hiking, camping? I don't know.
That's what I want.
That's your love language, right? Like, I don't know, man. It's like one of the things we always say, out there is like, how do you bring a Wyoming pace, right, to for us, Ohio, to an Ohio place? How do I bring this pace? And I would say not just the pace, not just the rhythm and the feel of that, but like, how do I take that table?
Right.
So we always talk about, how do I go create a table there? How do I get that back home? And most often, you got to create it.
Right.
You got to be a little bit bold and just invite a few people in, right? And so like, it just happens, man. When you see it happening, it's so cool. And literally, I am embarrassed at how blessed I am to have the people I have in my life, because I am sympathetic to people, like you just said, that, man, they don't have someone. They feel like they don't have someone.
That's right.
And they feel like, I truly don't know where I could turn at 3 a.m. or I don't know. And I have this like embarrassment of riches of relationships. I got a text last night. I got a friend, he throws parties that he calls smoking floats. He invites us a bunch of buddies, and we get in his awesome pool, and he gets out really good cigars, and we smoke them. And invariably it's fun. And I hate to say like a requirement of it, but I promise you at some point on that Tuesday night when we're all together, he's going to ask some poignant question. It's just going to be a simple thought. He's going to ask something to the group of like, how it's that second, how you doing? It's not the first, how you doing?
Right.
It's like, so how we really doing?
Yeah.
Checking in.
What's going on, guys?
What's going on? We're all here for a reason. Tuesday night, smoking cigars. Everybody good? Right? Yeah. And holy cow, man, what a gift.
Yeah.
What a gift to be able to be in a space like that, to create a space like that, to benefit from it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, Luke, I've been similar blessings of having a father who's also was blessed with being invited into circles with people who care, to surround yourself with humans. And it's honestly, it feels like it's almost a part of my DNA, that it's an innate desire to ensure that people know that they're not alone, that there is community. And I've also witnessed and experienced organizational leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs who do the same thing for their associates. I remember sitting, this was it's probably 17 years ago, 15 years ago. I was in a conference room and I was talking about the impact of creating trust and vulnerability with teams. And I had a individual who was in the room, who was on the team that I was the facilitator, and an individual raised her hand in the room, and she said, she got really emotional quick. And she said, I was I was in my hair salon, and the lady who's cut my hair for, I don't know, 12 years, 20 years, whatever, asked her, she said to this person who raised her hand, "You're the only person who ever comes into my hair salon and talks about their work in a positive way." And this individual then opened up about the culture. I was invited in by this company to come speak to their team about culture and vulnerability and trust. One of my really dear friends, it's his organization, Jonathan Theaters, who's also been on the podcast. And one of his team members was like, the things that they do for us, that they care about us, they help us, they support us, they empower us, they challenge us here in this company to think differently at work and at home. And the things we do for community and the way we build into one another. And again, it's one of those foundational moments that you're like, we need more of these, right? We need more organizations and leaders who step up, who care about the humans they employ. That one of the words and phrases I talk about, that recognize the privilege you have to have the team members who are on your team and who are surrounding you to be on your team. They don't have to be there. They can go someplace else, right? And what a privilege to have that community, to have that team. And how are we building into them? And how are we leading them differently? And how are we encouraging them to think differently? I just recently had an associate who left our organization after 18 years. Her and I worked together 2 years prior. And in the midst of this transition, I'm excited for her. I honestly am going like, why aren't I so angry? Right? Well, because I was trained by my dad. He always would ask his team, do you want to be here next year? If so, what can I do to help you maximize the coming year?
Yeah.
What can I do to help you maximize the next 3 years? And if at any point we feel like it's your time to fly out of the nest, right, and go do bigger, badder, cooler things, or help you in a way. So we've had people leave our organization who became public speakers, people who have left our organization to retire to become an author, people who have left our organization to relocate to a different country,
to pursue some
my
dream.
my buddy Ronnie, who worked with me for 4 years, left and lives in the UAE and is a entrepreneur who now started a company that 10 years later is wildly successful in the UAE. To pursue some dream. I have a team member runs his father's excavator business now that was with us for 4, 5, 6 years. The word ambassador comes to mind. Like, we want to be ambassadors for people, and we want people to not just stay with us because they don't feel like they can leave. We want them to feel empowered to do great things. And what is that next great thing? It transitions your mindset a little bit to go like, why aren't I yes, I'm going to miss the team member who recently left. Becky and I are best friends, right? And just today, I texted her twice this morning. I was joking with her, like, Becky, you may have to tell our team to remind me that you're not on my team because I'm still going to be, because we talk 6 days a week, right? But it's okay. It's okay because next chapters are awesome.
And I think it's amazing. It's really important, rather, in our journeys as leaders to recognize the Beckys that are just so consistently there and to show gratitude for them. and to be thankful for them, because oftentimes we're thankful when someone pops up in our life and does something nice for us on that rare occasion that we don't really talk to them often. Man, that was so cool that they did that. But like, are we as grateful for the people that are consistently there? I heard this concept the other day on just a great episode of Mel Robbins' podcast with Jay Shetty, and he was just framing up this idea of like, it's the boring people in our life that we're usually the least grateful for, and they're the ones that are always there. You know, that's like our moms, like and our dads, and our maybe the people closest to us that are just relentlessly, consistently there. And it's like, man, let your gratitude start there with them.
Yeah.
And remember that. So on your teams, right? Who are those faithful, leaders, those just awesome people that are in the trenches with you and have been for a long time, and just keep showing up. And man, how do you show real gratitude for them in those moments so that when they leave, they know they're beloved,
right?
And they're not wondering if you recognized that about them.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe the greatest organizations actually track and stay connected to their alumni, right? Because again, when I reference greatest organizations, I'm framing it up in our mindset of unconventional leaders.
It's awesome.
Right? People who think about the success of the humans that they have the privilege that floats through their door for whatever season of life they're in. And you can say that there are amazing organizations who have the greatest alumni networks. They really care about the success. I reference often like the big four consulting firms.
Yeah, sure.
They have some of the strongest global networks in the world.
Yeah.
And they want you to be successful when you leave the nest because
it's good for them.
It's good for them.
Totally.
And they care about your long-term longevity.
Yeah.
They care about your longevity. And how do you still stay connected? One of the questions that we ask with organizations is the question around what is your relationship with your alumni?
It's good.
Right? And it's okay to not stay connected with everyone because you can't. But some of my best friends, my advisors, my colleagues, my referrals into future customers can all come from the alumni and your friendships. Some of my best friends in life are clients that I met along this journey that we felt so connected to, associates that you stay connected to. So building alumni, ambassadors, caring about your people while they're there so that they can achieve their greatness. Maybe it's with you, maybe it's not.
Yep.
And it's all okay.
Yeah. All that time spent with people while they're with you, while they're not with you, and they're after you, that's all just investment, right? And it's just investing into, that account of friendship and of relationship and of care. And you got to understand that compounds and it's coming back to you. It may not come back to you in the ways you recognize it, you know what I mean? But boy, like that ongoing investment, it pays. There's dividend there. And I think that's really important. I think it's really good advice. Speaking of good advice, I know we're almost out of time. I see a blinking light. I can't help myself but see it. I would love if I don't know how you want to end this if we're ending soon, but man, I would love practical stuff that we can leave people with, because here's one of my things that we say a lot at Banded is oftentimes we are people of really great intention.
Yeah.
And intentions are not the things that will ever move the needle or make a difference or bring about transformation in the lives of our own life or the lives of the people that we lead, right? And so how do we marry our actions to our intentions? We all want to be upper right on the 2x2 quadrants, right? We all want to be up there, but how do I actually go there?
If there's someone that you can think back in the last couple of weeks who did something or said something nice to you or for you or around you or with you or around your team or your family, thank them. Yeah. Because a lot of people do things and never get thanked. And I always tell people when I do this in a speaking engagement, and if no one has done anything nice for you in the last couple of weeks, make note of it. So when it happens in the next couple of weeks, when something takes place, when someone reminds you of your awesome activity or action or interaction, thank them. If there's someone who has done something for you, your family, your employees, that it might be a vendor, it might be a customer, it might be a colleague, it might be a past employee, thank them, reach out to them and just thank them and say, hey, I just want to thank you for what you did recently.
And be specific in the compliment. One of the greatest superpowers is if you can be specific in the compliments you give. So not, dude, thanks for the way you showed up in that meeting. I don't know what to do with that.
Right.
But hey, thanks for the way that when you showed up in that meeting, you were authoritative and you knew your stuff. I could tell you were so prepared. Thanks for the way when you had that slide ready, like you knew what I was doing and going and you pulled that up. My goodness, dude, you were such a huge support in that meeting. And I don't think we would have had the success we had if it wasn't for you. Holy cow. That means so much more to me as a junior associate or as a whatever, right? Than like, hey, thanks for the way you showed up in that meeting.
Yeah.
Both are nice. One's really nice.
But getting really specific. The other comment I want to make is you might be going like, how do I get a community like this? So we're going to put a link in the notes that you can just fill out a really brief form to let us know like, hey, I want to learn more about this. Because Luke and I and our organizations and teams are about community, are about creating space. And it may not be something that we both do, but it might be something that we have other colleagues who do.
100%.
So we want to have you reach out to us in that way and just say, you know what, if you ever think, and maybe we even put a question of what are your interests that we can put in the form that you can just easily submit, and we'll kind of manage that and get back to you and help you so you make sure you have a community to support you in that way. So Luke, one of the final questions is, what is an unconventional leader for you? How do you define an unconventional leader?
I think an unconventional leader is someone who is deeply self-aware of their gifts, their shortcomings, their capabilities, their blind spots, and has the ability to show up time and time again for others and create space for others where that helps them become more self-aware of those same things in their life. So an unconventional leader is someone that, man, I know myself well. I've done the work. A lot of us like haven't done the work. Like I've done the work. And I've not mastered it. I don't think you ever get mastery of self-awareness. Thinking you have it is probably a sign you don't have it. And so, like, man, I've done the work, and because of that, I can show up in ways that, like you said, man, I can securely talk in a way that might make someone else go, "Whoa, that was different, and I wasn't expecting it." But actually, it's kind of cool, and it opened up a way for me to talk in a way that I maybe wasn't thinking I could. So really self-aware leaders that leverage that self-awareness to help others live fully and live completely. We say live wholeheartedly.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you so much for your being a 3 a.m. friend to me and for your time today.
Love you, man.
I want to thank all of you for joining this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. I want to thank the creative genius behind this episode with the Cincinnati Podcast Studio and all that they do to bring these stories and opportunities to life. I encourage you to fill out the form or give us some insights. Love your feedback. You know how to reach us. I also want to encourage you to subscribe and follow and share this episode with other friends of yours or colleagues of yours that you think would benefit from the conversation. Look forward to seeing you next week.
While the Unconventional Leadership Podcast and the Talent Magnet Institute explore topics related to mental health or well-being, our content is for educational and inspirational purposes only and should not replace professional medical or psychological advice. We are not licensed mental health professionals, and the insights shared should not be considered diagnosis, treatment, or a substitute for therapy or counseling. If you are experiencing mental health challenges or emotional distress, we strongly encourage you to seek help from a licensed counselor or a healthcare provider. You are not alone, and help is available. There are resources linked in the description, but if you or someone you know is in crisis or immediate danger, please call 911 or the 988 crisis line for immediate help. At the Unconventional Leadership Podcast and Talent Magnet Institute, we believe that leadership starts with caring for yourself. Please prioritize your well-being. Seeking help is a courageous act.